When the most silent 10 minutes in history occurred on the Highway to Heaven set, everyone discovered a new character of MichaelLandon. When America's father was saying, "Never give up" to the cancer patient little Sarah, he was actually speaking for himself too. When the shooting ended, camerawoman Jessica was crying. The sound technician was wiping his tears. Because in that scene, Michael wasn't just Jonathan Smith, he was a real father. So why did this scene go down in Hollywood history? To understand MichaelLandon's final scene, one needs to know what he had experienced up to that day. Since receiving his pancreatic cancer diagnosis in April 1991, America's father had been racing against death. The doctors had given him 6 months. After hearing this, instead of leaving work to be with his family, Michael decided to work for 6 more months. And on that June day, his body had reached the breaking point. The set had a different atmosphere that morning. MichaelLandon's condition was now too bad to hide. He had been brought to the set in a wheelchair. His face was yellowed, his cheeks were sunken, he was having trouble breathing. Costume designer Linda noticed how weak and cold his hands were while dressing him. "Today will be a difficult day," whispered assistant director Tom to Jessica. "I think it's one of his final shoots." But no one dared to say this to Michael, because America's father still maintained that determined look. There was still a steel-like will in his eyes. The scene to be shot that day was very special. It was one of the final episodes of Highway to Heaven. The character, Jonathan Smith, would talk to a little girl named Sarah who had cancer. The scene seemed simple. Jonathan would sit by the child's hospital bed and try to give her hope, show her a reason to live. Under normal circumstances, it would be a routine scene. But nothing was normal that day. The little actress playing Sarah Emma was only 8 years old. In real life, she was a healthy child, but that day she needed to look pale and sick for the scene. The makeup artist had carefully prepared her. Her face was made pale with white powder. Under her eyes were lightly bruised. Her hair was thinned with a wig. The little girl was lying in the hospital bed, waiting for Michael. When MichaelLandon came to the scene area with his wheelchair, little Emma was shocked. Until that day, she had always seen MichaelLandon standing, strong and energetic. Now there was a man who looked sick like herself in front of her. "Hello, Emma," Michael said with a soft voice. "Are you ready?" The little girl nodded, but the anxiety in her eyes was very clear. Michael noticed this. "Don't be afraid," he said, smiling at her. "It's just a scene. You're pretending to be sick, and I'm pretending to be an angel trying to help you, okay?" Emma smiled with relief. "Okay, Michael." The cameras were positioned, the lights were adjusted, the set was ready. But everyone was worried about Michael's condition. He was having trouble breathing, coughing occasionally. Director David told him several times, "We can postpone if you want." Michael replied each time, "No, we're continuing." "Action!" shouted the director. MichaelLandon, as Jonathan Smith, approached little Sarah's bed. He barely got up from his wheelchair and sat on the edge of the bed. He looked at the little girl. There was real fatherly compassion in his eyes. "Sarah," he said as the character Jonathan, "I know you've faced many difficulties. Your illness saddens you, frightens you." Little Emma/Sarah nodded. "Yes, Jonathan, sometimes I'm very scared. What if I can't get better?" Michael/Jonathan touched her hand. "You know, sometimes life really gets very hard. Dark days come, but never forget this, Sarah." He paused here. He was having trouble breathing, but he continued. "Even the darkest night has a dawn." Everyone on the set felt the power of these words. Michael wasn't just speaking as Jonathan. He was speaking from the dark nights he had experienced, from his own struggle with death. "But what if the morning never comes?" asked little Emma, as her role required. Michael's eyes had filled with tears. He saw his own fears from real life in that little girl's questions. "Sarah," he said with his trembling voice, "the morning will definitely come. Maybe not as we expect it. Maybe it will look different. But there is always a morning. And you You're a strong girl. We must never give up." While saying these words, Michael's voice had started trembling even more. He wasn't speaking just from his role, but from his own life. These were the words he told himself in his own struggle with death. "What if I want to give up?" asked Emma/Sarah. Michael stopped, because he had asked himself this question many times too. There was a long silence. Then he took a deep breath and said, "Sarah, sometimes even the strongest people want to give up. This is normal. But real strength is taking one more step, even when you want to give up. Living one more day for your loved ones. Taking one more breath. Because you're not just living for yourself. You're living for everyone who loves you." While saying these words, Michael's voice had become completely hoarse. It wasn't Jonathan speaking anymore. It was MichaelLandon. He was speaking to his own children, his own loved ones, his own fans. "And remember Sarah," he continued, with tears flowing from his eyes. "Love never dies. Even if you leave here, my love for you will always stay here," he said, pointing to the little girl's heart. "Love keeps us alive. Love makes us immortal." Little Emma had now forgotten the scene and was reacting with real emotions. "Michael," she said with her own voice, "you'll never die, will you?" Michael smiled. He was now completely out of character. "Emma, we all leave one day, but the love we leave behind remains, and you'll always remember me, won't you?" "Yes," said the little girl, crying. "Cut!" shouted the director, but his voice was very weak. And then that unforgettable moment happened. Complete silence began to reign over the set. There were maybe 50 people on the set, but no one was speaking. No one was moving. Camerawoman Jessica was crying. The sound technician was wiping his tears. Director David had bowed his head. Costume designer Linda couldn't hold back her sobs. Michael was still sitting next to little Emma. Both were crying. This was no longer a scene. This was a real moment shared by two people. 10 minutes. Exactly 10 minutes no one spoke. Only sobbing sounds could be heard on the set. Finally, Michael spoke. "Thank you, Emma. You're a wonderful actress." The little girl hugged him. "Michael, I love you very much." "I love you too, Emma. I love all of you." Slowly, the set began to come alive. But everyone's emotions had changed so much. Everyone who experienced that scene had understood that MichaelLandon wasn't just an actor. He was a real father, America's real father. Camerawoman Jessica later described that moment. In that scene, Michael wasn't just Jonathan, he was our father, everyone's father. Even while dying, he was teaching us how to live. Sound technician Mark said, "I've been doing this job for 30 years, but I had never seen anything like this. He wasn't acting, he was living, really living." Director David. "That day I understood that working with MichaelLandon was a privilege. He wasn't just an actor, he was a teacher, a life teacher." That scene didn't remain just as a television scene. That scene became one of the final messages MichaelLandon left to the world. It was the story of a man who never lost hope even while racing against death, who continued to share his love. MichaelLandon shot a few more scenes after that day, but none of them were as powerful as that scene. Because in that scene, the mask had fallen, the real MichaelLandon had emerged. On July 1st, 1991, a few weeks after shooting that scene, MichaelLandon died. But the words he said in that scene are still alive. "Love never dies. Love makes us immortal." Emma, now an adult woman, still remembers that day. "Michael didn't just teach me acting, he taught me life, how to be strong, how to be loving. He taught me these things." And that 10-minute silence on the set is still remembered as one of the most powerful moments in Hollywood history. Because that was the moment when a legend was born. The moment when MichaelLandon's true greatness was understood. America's father was a father not only on television, but also in real life. And that scene became one of the most precious legacies he left to the world.